as I told you, we did Peking to Paris a couple of times in 2007 and 2010, and two of the teams that we got along very well were Rudy and Helga Friedrich on a Speed 20, and Michael and Dan Wilkinson from Australia on a 4.3, and we became very good friends. And I was very complimentary of the way they drove those cars. Rudy had a Speed 20 SA, but with a 4.3 engine, and he was extremely fast. And he was overtaking everybody in Mongolia, on those tracks in Mongolia. And he helped me quite a lot on one of those when I a lot of mechanical problems, and he's very mechanically minded as well. And then a couple of years later, they invited us to act as a support 4x4 car on a project they had of crossing Australia from Melbourne all the way to Darwin, on those two Alvis, of course, yeah, and sort of a touring event, which they called Opals and Diamonds, because we stayed on some of those places. And of course I said yes, and so we undertook that across Australia, south to north, travel across the desert, the Tanami Desert and the Gibb River and so forth, with two other friends on two other 4x4s acting as backup vehicles. And it was an amazing experience. That bit video clip that you saw of them crossing the river, I actually crossed the river first on my 4x4, and then I taped that. And the other one, which was just as we were going into the desert, that saw the two cars and stopped us. She actually she chased us on the car and stopped us, and she was a broadcaster, which run a radio show on.
Yeah, I think they are. Rudy, you should tell us how many miles you've done in your car.
Rudy?
Yeah.
Rudy joins us here as well. He's got his driving cap on. Makes him look very official. How many miles have you done in your Elvis?
It's certainly more than 100,000 miles I've done in this Elvis. On rough roads, crossing Mongolia and Siberia and so on, yeah.
How does it handle?
It handles very well. It's very nice to drive. It's got a long wheelbase, easy to control in drifts. So I love driving it.
Have you had many issues along the way? You must have had a few. You must have a few stories.
Oh, there's lots of stories. Not on this tour through Australia. It turns out to be quite easy drive here, and I love the landscape. But we had quite some trouble in Mongolia. Broken kingpins, broken chassis, broken leaf springs. But you always repair it alongside the gravel roads, no issue. Easy to maintain, easy to repair, because it's very simple cars, only mechanics, no electronic, almost no electric, so it's easy to repair.
Being out in the open like that, the wind must be a bit of an issue from time to time. Do you have a special technique for dealing with that?
Take the right clothes with you, that's all. No, I mean, we love the wind, so that's why we drive these cars.
Why do you love this so much? What is it about doing these journeys that appeals to you?
I think it is about to explore the world in vintage cars. There's no better way to really get close to the local cultures, to the landscapes, to everything. What's the point in taking a flight into Ulaanbaatar and have a week on the local Hilton hotel? You haven't seen anything. But driving through the country or driving through Australia, you really meet the people, you talk to them like I'm talking to you now.
And what about you? What's the appeal for you?
I think it's exactly the same. It's a great way to travel. We have always wanted to travel first, and the cars have been a great way to do that. And I think, just to Rudy's point, if you break your chassis in Mongolia, you meet some very interesting people fixing the chassis in Mongolia. And that's the fun part of it. You don't meet people who just run hotels. You meet the guy who's got a small garage in the funny little town. There's only 100 people, and that's the fun of it. And we'll see the same here.
So this another month on the road with those two Alvis, I really became to appreciate the quality of the cars, and I had the chance to drive one of them a little bit myself as well. Until then, I've only done a lot of rallies on classic cars. I didn't even own a pre-war car at all. But when I started looking at what was going on in the UK, there's not many pre-war only rallies in continental Europe at all. Certainly not in Portugal. But of course, there's quite a few in England, and I decided I'd like to do some of those. And I started looking for a pre-war car, and I looked at a number of different brands, as you can imagine. I've always been an Aston man, and a pre-war Aston was also on the cards, but it's only 1500 cc's and not too big for my big frame, and a lot more expensive than the Alvis as well. All the others, you know, the Bentleys and the Lagondas and the Invictas of this world, they were also well beyond my means. So in the end, a combination of the value and the specifications of the car and the way they drove and so forth, I went for an Alvis. I started looking for one.